Hi, it's Jack, and this is the podcast version of this episode. If you want to read the words as they're being analysed, then if you're on Spotify, you can become a subscriber of this channel or head over to the YouTube channel. And on both platforms, you can also sign up to get exclusive episodes and early access to the regular weekly episodes too. Karen Reid is being retried. She is accused of murdering her boyfriend, John O'Keefe. But is witness Jennifer McCabe the head of a conspiracy to cover up for the real murderer? And just how independent is the supposedly independent defence expert? By very popular demand, that's what I'll be asking in this episode.
Are you asking me if I made a Google search at 2:27? Yes. I don't know what time I was searching.
So you didn't delete text?
I think I just told you that, yes, I did delete the text.
You didn't tell me, but you just did now. Thank you.
Welcome to Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. What I do here is different from anywhere else because I'm going to strip away everything apart from the words that are said, then use my process of statement investigation to give you the key to seeing where deception could be happening, where the truth is, and also the motivations of a person. Now, this week I have had a lot of demand to look at two witnesses in the Karen Reid trial, Dr. Wolfe and also Jennifer McCabe. So let's do them. Let's dial down the noise and the tribal nature that this case has sprouted and get down to what they said in court. Now, what we're going to be looking at here is one particular principle, something that's really useful to know in life, but also useful to know if you like watching trials or you're committed to watching the rest of this trial. That is, in general, we prefer to tell the truth. As people would much rather tell the truth. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to say the whole truth. That doesn't even mean we might give misleading truth, but it's going to be something that we're going to deal with a lot in this episode. So let's get to the first witness we're going to look at. It's Dr. Wolfe, and this is Dr. Wolfe talking to the defence lawyer. So this is a friendly conversation. This is almost like a baseline for Dr. Wolfe. Now, we hear about baselines a lot in body language. That's not so important when we're looking just at the linguistics and the words that someone uses, but just examine Dr. Wolfe here, kind of just talking to a friend.
Have any discussions with you about the substance of that report to the United States Department of Justice?
No, we had no idea who the defense was or the Commonwealth for that matter.
And when you took the stand in the voir dire testimony in the first trial, before you took the stand, did you have any discussions with any member of the defense about the substance of that report?
No, sir.
Did you have any discussions with any member of the defense before the voir dire testimony other than discussions about background and qualifications?
Other than, again, some logistics about how to get up here, where to go, things of that nature. But beyond that, no.
Okay, not have really much to analyse there. I just want to talk about the pattern of his answer. He's asked questions and he gives very short answers. He may give a little bit more so the answer is truthful. Remember, I said people prefer to stick to the truth. So has there been any discussions with you about the substance of that report to the United States Department of Justice? No. It's a yes-no question. Have you had any discussions? Yes, I have. No, I haven't. No, he says, an indication he is telling the truth because he's gone straight to no. It's the first word he said. We had no idea who the defence was or the Commonwealth for that matter. Regulars might pick up on that phrase, no idea, but I'm not going to go into that here. The next question is a really bad one, and this guy asking the questions asks really long-winded questions. The question is, and when you took the stand at the voir dire testimony in the first trial, before you took the stand, so when he took the stand and then before he took the stand, really confusing question, but here's a clear part of the question. Did you have any discussions with any member of the defence about the substance of that report? No, sir. Very short. 2 words. One of them is just politeness, but one of them is saying no. He's very comfortable here. He doesn't feel the need to explain, give big long answers, add in anything extra than has been said here. It's just no, sir. And the third question there, did you have any discussions with any member of the defence about the voir dire testimony other than discussions about background and qualifications? And he says, he says, other than, again, some logistics about how to get up here, where to go, things of that nature, but beyond that, no. So he's done the no there. It's at the end of the answer, but he does provide a little bit more information. It's called going extra, and that is to clarify the answer. So if he just said a straight no, based on what he says there, that would be a misleading answer. So he's gone fuller, and he said that, yes, there were also some logistics about how to get up here, where to go, things of that nature, but beyond that, no. So when he is being friendly, when he's not under attack or worried about his answer, he's very straightforward. He provides a little bit more context, but factual context, but he is yes or no with the questions. So very, very simple. It all changes when he comes under questioning from the prosecution, who don't believe this guy is not buddy pally working with the defence, i.e. not as independent as he would like to make out. Let's have a listen.
And by the way, when you put together your phone records and text messages that you sent to the court in response to the court order, did you have actual records?
What do you mean in terms of actual records?
Well, I see like a summary chart that was developed. Who developed that summary chart?
So that was, again, as I mentioned earlier, I was unfortunately unable to pull anything from T-Mobile. I just could not get access. Then what I did is I logged into my personal Verizon phone records, and I was able to go back for 3 months. I couldn't get back to December, and then I downloaded the spreadsheets, and I extracted those rows and provided that.
Did you provide the actual records or just the spreadsheet?
Well, I provided the spreadsheet, which was pulled from the records. I would have had to redact a lot of phone numbers if I was to put in the full extraction, if you will.
So you didn't provide the full extraction?
I provided the full extraction as it relates to all of the contact between myself and Mr. Jackson and Miss Little.
Did you ever delete texts?
From last year?
Yes.
Yes.
After you had text messages with the defense, did you delete those texts?
Yeah, after the trial concluded, I mean, that's something I routinely do. I'm not going to keep texts from Mr. Jackson, especially now that we're past a year. I would have no reason to keep those, sir.
I'm not asking for the excuse. I'm asking if you did it. Did you delete texts?
Again, it's something that I typically do. I communicate with attorneys all the time, whether it's for trial or inspections. I don't have a habit of keeping a text chain about scheduling or meeting or, hey, can we meet at this time or show up here. I just don't have a habit of keeping that type of text. So he's not my friend, sir.
So you didn't delete texts?
I think I just told you that, yes, I did delete the text.
No, you didn't tell me, but you just did now. Thank you.
Spot the difference there in the way that he spoke and answered the questions. Let's break it down. By the way, when you put together your phone records and text messages that you sent to the court in response to the court order, did you have actual records? Now, Dr. Wolfe replies with a question here. What do you mean in terms of actual records? Now, it could be he needs clarification because it's not a very straightforward question, or it could be he's gone, this is a question I don't want to answer without thinking about the answer and getting the words right that I want to say in my head. So to give me that time, to buy that time, what I'm going to do is respond to the question with a question. What do you mean in terms of actual records? But already I am feeling that he is much more tense, much more stressed, and much more considering his words than he was when we heard him talk to the defence. So the response to that as well, I see like a summary chart that was developed. Who developed that summary chart? And I want you to pay attention to that word. Who developed that summary chart? The answer is so. That was, again, as I mentioned earlier, I was unfortunately unable to pull anything from T-Mobile. I just could not get access. Then what I did is I logged into my personal Verizon phone records, and I was able to go back for 3 months. So the question was, who did this? Who put together the summary chart? And he does not say exactly who. It's alluded to there that it was him, but he doesn't say, I did that. That would be a very straightforward, simple answer to the question. No need to go with any more of this extra stuff, but it's obviously important for him to say this extra stuff. He wants to get this out. He could have just said, I did it. But instead, he goes into an answer that's full of deceptive language. He starts his answer with so. When someone starts an answer with so, it's a worry. It means I'm going to give you an explanation and some reasoning and some excuses. You're not really going to expect what came here. He wouldn't say so me if he answered the question just really direct and honestly. It's just so. So that's a red flag to what's coming here is not expected. It's not going to be just a simple answer to the question that's asked. So that was, and then he says, again, as I mentioned earlier. Now, those two things are both mean the same thing. Again is signaling this is something I've said before, as does, as I mentioned earlier. Now, I see that a lot from deceptive people in their words. They don't just say something they've said previously, they flag that they've said this previously. And in deceptive terms, that the reason for that is that people believe the more consistent they are, if they're being deceptive, the more believable they are, the more honest they will come across. But they can't just do the thing that honest people do, which is say the same thing and again, because it's the truth. They flag it up, as I've mentioned this before. Is that what's going on here? He has a couple of stutters in this answer. He stutters on I was unfortunately unable to pull anything from T-Mobile. And then I logged into my personal Verizon phone records. Stuttering on those personal pronouns indicates a bit of stress from joining himself with that personal pronoun, his self, something very important to us, to what he's going to say next. Another deceptive indicator that deception could be happening. None of these things are proof that deception is happening, but I'm seeing a lot of indications that deception could be happening. He says, I just could not get access. Just another deceptive indicator word. I just could not get access. That is trying to just minimize it down, just make it all seem really small and don't focus on anything else. I just could not get access. Why? That's what he wants us to avoid thinking about and looking at. I just could not get access. Don't think about it too much. It's a very small thing. Then what I did is I logged into my personal Verizon phone records. I was able to go back 3 months. Still has not said who, which is the answer that's been looking for. I couldn't get back to December, and then I downloaded the spreadsheets and I extracted those rows and provided that. We have this phrase, I pulled, and then I pulled, and it doesn't say pulled. He says, I downloaded the spreadsheet. So he was going to say, I pulled something. Potentially, I think, just from what comes later, he was going to say, I pulled the relevant details or the ones that I wanted to share, not everything. But that would make him look like he is being selective about the information that he is sending through. So he changes it to a much wider word. I downloaded the spreadsheet and I extracted those rows and provided that. So those rows, again, is just saying, and he's being upfront about this, that he only provided certain information, but he wants it to seem like he was being really, really helpful, rather than it appearing that he was being very selective about the information that he passed on. He's asked, did you provide the actual records or just the spreadsheet? And he starts his answer with, well, exact same thing as so. I'm not going to give you a straight answer. I'm going to give you an explanation. And that's what we get. Because look, if he was just giving a straight answer, did you provide the actual records or just the spreadsheet? He could say, I provided the actual records or I provided the spreadsheet. Instead, we get a word salad. I provided the spreadsheet, which was pulled from the records. And we've got that word pulled again. So he really, I don't know what he is, but he's done some sort of scientist. So pooling data might be a thing that he does. It's regularly in his vocabulary. I provided the spreadsheet, which was pulled from the records. I would have had to redact a lot of phone numbers if I was to put in the full extraction, if you will. Lazy. I'm only kidding. So he's asked, so you didn't provide the full extraction? A yes/no question. Yes, I provided the full extraction. No, I didn't provide the full extraction. He says, I provided the full extraction as it relates to all the contact between myself, Mr. Jackson, and Miss Little. So what he's actually saying there is, no, I didn't provide a full extraction, but he doesn't say the word no. He tries to say he provided a full extraction and then qualifies it down. As it relates to all the contact between myself and Mr. Jackson and Miss Little. Now, that is just very vague. It's not, I provided the full extraction of everything between myself, Mr. Jackson, and Miss Little. It's as it relates to the contact between myself and Mr. Jackson and Miss Little. And no, he doesn't say as it relates to this case or people involved in this case. It's just to people. Those may be the only two people he contacted, but he's very specific about what he says there. He's very qualified in here about this full extraction. He wants to appear as helpful as possible without saying how limited in scope he has been with what he's passing on. He's asked, did you ever delete texts? And he answers with a question again, which is buying him some thinking time, or he wants to qualify what he says. Did you ever delete texts from last year? Is the question he asks. The attorney says yes. And he replies, yes, right? Now that is an example of what the truth sounds like. Did you delete text from last year? Yes. Really simple. He is saying outright, I deleted texts from last year. Very truthful, very honest. That's what the truth looks like. It's just a yes to a yes/no question. He's then asked, after you had text messages with the defense, did you delete those texts? He says, yeah, after the trial concluded. Now, again, that's what the truth looks like. And like I said at the beginning of this episode, people in general prefer to tell the truth. And he's telling the truth here. Yeah, after the trial concluded. And then he goes on extra, because that is all that is needed to answer that question. Did you delete those texts? Yeah, after the trial concluded. And he goes on extra to explain away these deleting of the texts. Obviously, a bit sensitive to him, and he wants to get ahead of this and get his story out there. And he says, I mean, that's something I routinely do. I'm not going to keep texts from Mr. Jackson, especially now that we're past a year. I would have no reason to keep those, sir. What do you notice about that? Because I noticed something interesting about it, which is that he doesn't say this is something I always do. He doesn't say this is my regular practice. What he says is this is something I routinely do. So he doesn't say that he did it actually in this case. He doesn't really, well, he does talk about that, but then he makes it sound really normal. But it's not something he always does. It's something he routinely does, which is slightly different. We all routinely do things, but the reason we say we routinely do it is because sometimes we fall out of that routine. And I'm not going to keep texts. I'm not going to keep texts. Not, I just didn't keep texts from Mr. Jackson. I deleted the text from Mr. Jackson. I'm not going to keep texts from Mr. Jackson, especially now we're past a year. I would have no reason to keep those, sir. I want to notice, by the way, the trial there was last summer, so we're not past a year yet, Mr. Wolfe or Dr. Wolfe. Just put it out there that you might be making things sound a little bit more innocent than they were with all of that. The attorney says, I'm not asking for excuses. I'm asking if you did it. Did you delete the texts? And Dr. Wolfe's answer is, again, it's something that I typically do. I communicate with attorneys all the time, whether it's for trial or inspections. I don't have a habit of keeping a text chain about scheduling a meeting or, hey, can we meet at this time or show up here? It's a yes/no question. Did you delete texts? He has already said yes. However, his answer just is a conflation of some of the deceptive indicators we've seen before. He starts with again. So this is him saying, I've said this before, I'm saying it now. Then it's something I typically do. Again, this is like routinely. He's not saying he does it all the time. He's just saying it's something he typically does. And he says, I don't have a habit of keeping a text chain. Again, that means, habits are something that we do more often than not, but we don't do them all the time. So he wants to make this whole deletion sound normal, but he doesn't talk here specifically about the text. In this case, it's just typical text, a habit that he's in of communicating with attorneys all the time and then deleting their text. But he doesn't say that's exactly what he did in this case. So he really wants to make this sound normal, just something that he usually does, instead of just going, yeah, I deleted texts all the time, or yeah, I deleted these texts, I didn't need them anymore. He wants to really explain it and make it sound easier. He finishes that answer by saying, I just don't have a habit of keeping that type of text. He's not my friend, sir. So the not my friend is unasked for, but this is now showing that he is uneasy about any insinuation that he is friendly with the defense attorneys. But we have the word just again. I just don't have a habit. Again, it's this habit of keeping text, but habit is something that happens most of the time, but not all the time. But he's really talking in general about what he does, not about this specific incident that he is being asked about. So he's then asked by the prosecution lawyer, so you didn't delete the text? And he says, I think I just told you that. Yes, I did delete the text. I put a question mark at the end of that because it does sound like delete the text, one specific text, but in the context, I think it may well have been texts, and that just wasn't enounced very well or came across very well in the audio. But I think I just told you that actually he did. To be fair to him, his very first answer to the question, did you delete the text, was, yeah, I did. But we have that, I think I just told you that. So this is, I'm repeating myself. You've got to believe me because I'm repeating myself. But he does say, yes, I did delete the text. And then the attorney finishes with quite a sarcastic, you didn't tell me, but you did just now. Thank you. So from that answer, what have I got here? I've got stress going on here. You can see the different mode of answering from when he's getting those more friendly questions from the defense. He is not answering what is asked a lot of the time. He's not just saying yes, no, me, giving really simple, direct answers. He is got stories that he wants to tell, impressions that he wants to make. He's very much talking in the general, wherever he can, about how he handles text rather than the specific text in this incident, and also so many signs and indicators of deception going on there inside Dr. Wolfe's answers. Let's see how he does with another set of questions.
So you assisted the defense in anticipation of your testimony by sharing with them the questions and answers you thought would be most helpful.
Again, as I mentioned, this is something that I do internally to prepare. I sent that to him the evening before I testified at 6 p.m. I presume that he already had his direct examination done at that point. So I sent that to him, yes.
That's a lot of answers other than the one for my question. The one for my question
Hold the comments, please.
My question was, you had communications offering information to the defense before you testified in a way that you thought would help the testimony, didn't you?
Well, first off, I have no idea if he even read it or utilized anything from it.
But that's not really answering the question I just asked, is it?
Can you repeat the question?
Of course I can. So when you sent a direct examination to Attorney Jackson before your testimony, you communicated with Attorney Jackson providing information that you thought would best help your testimony in court.
Well, I think ultimately it's to help the jury understand my report and my analysis.
Do you think it's helpful not answering the question and just diverting every time I ask you something? Do you think that's helpful? Do you want to answer my question or do you want me to move on?
I think I answered your question.
I don't think you did, so I'll ask it one more time.
Objection, Your Honor.
All right, no comments, please.
Do you think that providing a direct examination to the defense before you testified is in any way assisting preparing for your testimony?
Again, I don't know if he even utilized it, sir. And certainly if the Commonwealth had reached out, they could have gotten a copy of that as well. It would have been the same exact outline whether I testified on behalf of the defense or behalf of the Commonwealth.
I love a good testy court exchange, don't you? Let's dive into it. The question. So, you assisted, by the way, the question starts with so you assisted the defense in anticipation of your testimony. A little tip in life, if someone is answering, talking to you and they start with so, it's an indication that they're going to twist your words around, take what you've said and then put words into your mouth. I think that's what's going on here. So, you assisted the defense in anticipation of your testimony by sharing with them the questions and answers you thought would be most helpful. Dr. Wolfe's reply is, again, as I mentioned, this is something that I do internally to prepare. I sent that to him the evening before I testified at 6 p.m. I presume that he already had his direct examination done at this point, so I sent that to him, yes. Let's break him on down. He starts with, again, as I mentioned. Same principles we've seen before. This is a marker of possible deception, that he wants to appear congruent and consistent. And he's flagging up how consistent he is. Again, as I mentioned, this is something that I do internally to prepare. Now, this has got nothing to do with the question that's asked, which is, well, it has got something to do with the question you asked. I just don't think it means exactly what he wants us to take from it. This is something I do internally to prepare. So what he's saying is, yeah, I sent the questions. This is something I do internally to prepare. I sent them to him the evening before I testified at 6 p.m. I presume that he had already had his direct examination done at that point. So I sent that to him, yes. Now, that yes is a yes in response to the question that you assisted the defense in anticipation of your testimony by sharing with them the questions and answers you thought would be most helpful. Yes, the yes is in there. So it's an embedded admission that he helped or thought he was helping the defense. Although it's very strangely worded, this is something I do internally to prepare, but then send them external. Don't know. And why was he sending suggested questions and answers when he thought that, presumed that he already had his direct examination together? Doesn't make a lot of sense. We get a great bit of word salad from the attorney. That's a lot of answers other than the one for my question. My question was, you had communications offering information to the defence before you testified in a way that you thought would help the testimony, didn't you? Dr. Wolfe says, well, first off, starting again, saying there's an explanation coming here, not just a straightforward answer. Well, first off, I have no idea if he even read it or utilised anything from it. I always point out in many episodes that be wary of that phrase, I have no idea. He will have an idea. He sent the guy questions and answers. Was he asked those questions or not asked those questions? He will have an idea, but he wants to remain sort of away from all of this. So he says, I have no idea. We very often have an idea. And so why he would have no idea here, I don't know. So when you see that phrase, I have no idea, as opposed to I don't know, then it's a red flag for something going on. And there is seriously basis to consider something is going on there, because he would have an idea as to whether he was asked questions he suggested or if he wasn't. I have no idea if he even read it or even utilised anything from it. It's put to him, but that's not really answering the question I just asked, is it? So he says, can you repeat the question? Question to a question, buying some thinking time. Of course I can. So when you sent a direct examination to Attorney Jackson before your testimony, you communicated with Attorney Jackson, providing information that you thought would best help your testimony in court. And he says, well... Got a well again, so this is an explanation coming. I think ultimately it's to help the jury understand my report and my analysis. Fine answer, apart from that phrase, ultimately. Ultimately is the very end of things. It's the finality of it all, but there are stages in between now and ultimately. So again, I think that he did send this report to help the attorney, and maybe what was going on was he thought, I'll give him some suggested questions so the jury can get the most from the evidence that I have to give. But he's not quite saying that, is he? He's saying that he said yes to, did you do this to help? And now he's saying, ultimately, I want to help the jury explain my report and my analysis. But he's not saying that he's leaving room for other things to be possible in between. He's asked, do you think it's helpful not answering the question and just diverting every time I ask you something? So this guy's could do one of my courses, this attorney, or could have done one of my courses, because he's noticing this diversion and not straightforwardly answering the questions. Do you want to answer my question, or do you want me to move on? He says, I think I've answered your question. I don't think you did, so I'll ask it one last time. Do you think that providing a direct examination to the defence before you testified is in any way assisting preparing for your testimony? It's a yes-no question, and we don't get a yes or no in the answer, so there's something going on here. Again, I don't know if he even utilised it. He's so focused on this, whether this was utilised or not, which is completely irrelevant to the question. The question is, were you seeking to assist? Were you trying to help out? And he cannot deal with that part of the question. And then he diverts again. And certainly if the Commonwealth had reached out, they could have got a copy of that as well. It would have been the exact same outline whether I testified on behalf of the defence or on behalf of the Commonwealth. So we've just got a big diversion here. Him saying, again, it's very much like this is something that I normally do, so there's nothing suspicious here. But he's not saying that there. So in that part there, he avoids the question that he's asked, apart from an embedded answer inside there. He diverts, and he diverts on whether what he sent was used rather than the intention of sending the report to Attorney Jackson. So I believe that he did intend to be helpful to the defence. And that is a quick look at Dr. Wolfe's testimony this week. What do I think about Dr. Wolfe? Look, he is hiding the true extent of his relationship with the defence. Very qualified, not really wanting to answer the questions. I believe he specifically deleted those texts with intention and wants to make it all sound very normal. That's my opinion, is that there was something going on that caused him to delete those texts. It wasn't quite as routine as he would like us to believe. And in my opinion, he did want to help the defence. I don't think he is truly independent. I don't believe he is. I think that from what I can see, he does at the very least feel an affinity with the defence, but wants to come across as an independent expert. Coming up, Jennifer McCabe, cagey, downright unhelpful at times, and strangely helpful at others. We'll find out why and what's going on there when we analyse Jen McCabe's testimony. Now, do you ever feel like you're not being told the full story, kind of like with Dr. Wolfe there? Well, you're right. It's happening all the time. And I'm here to give you the key to seeing deeper on this channel. This is about hearing the world with new ears. And I'm on a mission to share this with as many people as possible. So if you want to unlock that secret, subscribe now, follow, join the movement, dive into the archives as well. A treasure trove of cases waiting to be explored, including analysis of the first Karen Reid trial. And do you know someone who needs this, someone who deserves to hear the truth? Then hit the like button, because that will help this get to more people. Share with people, recommend it to others. You are the marketing department for Never a Truer Word. So please get the word out there, because every single click, every single share, every recommendation fuels the fire, enabling me to dig deeper, analyse further, and bring this life-changing skill to even more people. Just a like, a share, a recommendation, a simple thing could change the way someone sees the world, and that is a tremendous gift to give. Right, shall we move on to Jen and McCabe? I think it's fair to say at Karen Reid's first trial, Jennifer McCabe, when she was a witness on the stand, didn't always come across very well. I think she realised that and has decided to go at things differently when she was on the stand this time. Have a listen to this exchange. It's very typical of many exchanges that took place during the hours that Jennifer McCabe was on the stand.
But in June of 2023, at a hearing under oath, you did say that it was at 12:45 that you last saw the vehicle.
I believe I said I think.
Refresh your recollection, take a look at the transcript I just read from.
I believe the word I think is in there.
You believe, but you're not sure.
Okay, I'll look at it.
Refresh your recollection.
Sure.
May I approach?
Yes.
Same page, please.
Thank you.
Does that refresh your recollection, Ms. McCabe, what you said in June of 2023 about seeing the SUV at the location at 12:45?
I see what I read. Sorry. I saw what I just read. I don't remember my exact words of every testimony, but I did just read that, yes.
And in fact, what you said back in June of 2023, quote, I don't know if it's my last text or if I did one more. Yeah, 12:45, hello. Because they were still there, period, correct?
That's a part of what I said.
Right, so she's got a real knack now of saying very little, and I think that's because she was pounced on a lot by that attorney in the first trial, who was pulling her words apart, and I think Jen felt like he was trying to put words into her mouth at times, so she's giving him very little to work with. You can see that her answers are very short and really pedantic. So she's asked at a hearing under oath, you did say it was at 12:45 you saw the vehicle. She says, I believe I said I think, so she's just not being held to anything at all. We've got believe and think in there. Would it refresh your recollection to look at the transcript? She says, I believe the word think is in there. You believe, but you're not sure. Okay, I'll look at it. So it's all very short. She's not being as combative. She's sort of swatting things away. She looks at the transcript. Does that refresh your recollections? She said, I saw what I read. I don't remember my exact words of every testimony, which is something she is going to stick to, which is, you're not going to catch me out by using different words at different times. I'm not going to say I remember exactly what is there. And I think there's a personal definition going on with Jen, which is that if she can't remember exactly, or claims she can't remember exactly, she's not going to admit to it in court, whether that's an exact time or the exact words that she used. She said, but I did read that, yes. And in fact, she said back in June 2023, I don't know if it's my last text or if I did one more. Yeah, 12:45, hello, because they're still there, period, correct. And she says, that's part of what I said. So there, this sort of baseline for her, short answers, factual to the point of pedantry, and these very tight definitions. She's not going to say that's what I said at that hearing. She's going to say that's what that report says, or that's what that transcript says. So she's being very, very tight on her definitions. So let's bear that in mind as she speaks. The first one we're going to look at is when she talks about being on the scene at the time and how she was acting, what was going on, and how Karen Reid was.
And what happens next?
More officers begin to come, fire and EMT, so the scene becomes active with a lot of different presence. John, I think they lift John onto a board at one point. The officers are asking us questions. Karen's kind of coming over, talking to the questions, and then kind of just running away, and then she just runs back over. She's doing a lot of screaming, a lot of repetitive, is he dead, is he dead, is he dead? Could I have hit him? Did I hit him? Kerry, I think, Kerry's off kind of making phone calls, I believe, to John's family.
The first question that's put to her there is, and what happens next? And she says, more officers begin to come, fire and EMT. So the scene becomes active with a lot of different presence. I think they lift John onto a board at one point. This is all in the present tense. Not what we expect when someone is recalling past events. It's in the present tense. Why? Well, one of the reasons why might be the question is asked, and what happens next, not what happened next. And therefore, it's informing her to be in the present tense when she is answering the question. Another reason for that can be trauma. Another reason for using the present tense to talk about past events is you're making it up. It's deceptive. And we don't know why that is. There's obviously trauma involved. The question is in the present tense, but this is very, very much in the present tense when she's talking. She continues in the present tense. The officers are asking us questions. Karen's, which is Karen is, kind of coming over, talking to the questions, and then kind of just running away, and then she just runs back over. So we've got that present tense there, and we've got a lot of vagueness. Karen's kind of coming over. You didn't see that when she was being very pedantic with the defense attorney earlier, this loose talk, this vagueness. Karen's kind of coming over, talking to the questions, kind of just running away, and then she just runs back over. So she's in a very different mode here when she's talking to the prosecution here. We also have an and then. Karen's kind of coming over, talking to the questions, and then kind of just running away, and then signals a jump in time, and then she just runs back over. So she's certainly hiding things here. Maybe for brevity, maybe because she considers the things that she's jumping over with it and then not as important as saying what Karen was doing, and Karen being slightly erratic and kind of bizarre behaviour that she's attributing to Karen here. And we have the words just again. Just running away, just runs back over. It makes me think there was a lot more going on there, but she's only choosing to tell us a very small part of it. She's doing a lot of screaming, present tense as well, doing a lot of screaming, but we've got the word doing in there as well. Why doesn't she just say Karen's screaming? Instead, it's doing a lot of screaming, a lot of repetitive, is he dead, is he dead, is he dead? Could I have hit him? Did I hit him? Kerry, I think, is making, and again, we're still in the present tense, Kerry's making phone calls to John, I believe, John's family. So this is a very, very curious way of talking about what was happening and what happens next. She talks in the present tense. It feels constructed to me that she wants the most important thing to her is not the functional things about what happened next. What is most important is talking about Karen being here, there, and everywhere and acting erratic, if you like. It also feels very condensed, as if she's skipping over anything that she doesn't want to talk about. Might not be important. It might just be things she doesn't want to talk about. She wants to get across two things for me: Karen's behaviour and this sort of mania around Karen, and also the fact that there was a dead person. John was there, and Kerry is off making phone calls to that family. So let's get some more from Jem.
When the defendant was speaking to the first responder, the woman, were you near?
Yes.
Did you hear or do you remember the defendant saying anything to the first responder?
Yes.
What did she say?
She told the first responder, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
When she told the first responder, I hit him, how did you react?
I was startled, kind of like, what are you saying? What are you talking about?
Did you say anything to the defendant?
I think after the second or third time she was saying it, I was like, Karen, like, what are you saying?
Why were you trying to interrupt her?
Because I thought she was just talking crazy, and I'm saying, why is she saying she hit him?
So Jen is asked there, when the defendant, that's Karen Reid, was speaking to the first responder, the woman, were you near? Jen says, yes. Once more, just like with Mr. Wolfe or Dr. Wolfe, this is what the truth sounds like, that yes, she was near when Karen was talking to a first responder. I believe that it really did happen. That doesn't mean the rest of it is believable or true, but it means that she was near the first responder when Karen was talking to the first responder, in my opinion, just from that simple yes. Did you hear or do you remember the defendant saying anything to the first responder? She says yes again. Very, very simple answers. This is what the truth sounds like. I believe she heard Karen say something to the first responder. What did she say? She told the first responder, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. That's very straightforward as well. She told the first responder, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. So I would not be able to poke any holes in that whatsoever for deception or so on. It's very straightforward that she is saying, I heard Karen say that to the first responder. She's then asked, when she told the first responder, I hit him, how did you react? And here we go again with this sort of vague language. I was like startled, and startled is something that Jennifer wants to get across a lot when she talks. We will see it come up, startle and surprise, shock. Quite often, she really wants to get across the fact that what happened that morning was a shock to her. Kind of like, so we've got, I was like startled, kind of like, what are you saying? What are you talking about? Now, this is interesting, and you will find this in your own life, that people will say, I was kind of like, what are you saying? What are you talking about? Now, kind of like means it didn't quite happen, but was she saying that out loud or was she saying that in her head? I very often find that when people say, I was like, what are you saying? What are you talking about? It feels like they're saying, I said this out loud. The reality is that they didn't say it out loud. They just kept it in your head. I think that's potentially what's going on here with Jen, is she was thinking these things but not saying them out loud. Did you say anything to the defendant? I think after the second or third time she was saying it, I was like, Karen, what are you saying? So we have more vagueness going on here. I think after the second or third time I said something. Just think, it's not like, 100% certain. I was like, Karen, what are you saying? Now, you see the difference in that answer. I think after the second or third time, I was like, Karen, what are you saying? Compare that to what did she say? She told the first responder, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. There's no likes or thinks in there whatsoever, which makes me wonder, is Jennifer telling the truth that that's what was said? And the rest of it, all a bit woolly, her response to it. She's asked, why were you trying to interrupt her? Because I thought she was just talking crazy, and I'm saying, why is she saying she hit him? Interesting there. That really the I hit him part of the story is straightforward, but the reaction isn't. I'm thinking, why is she saying she hit him? Well, why would that be the thought? Not why did she hit him? How did she hit him? Just why is she saying she hit him? Very interesting reaction there from what we hear from Jen. Let's get some more from her.
You didn't say a thing about Ms. Reid saying that there had been an argument, did you?
I'm saying I don't remember the specifics of my conversation with Officer Lank. I'm also saying that I was woken up out of a dead sleep. Karen showed up at my house screaming. I went out to help her look for John. And then we found one of my closest friends on the front lawn. And she was saying crazy things and acting crazy and
Ms.
acting
McCabe,
erratic. And so every
Ms. McCabe,
police officer
that
that I spoke to,
Let her finish.
every police officer that I spoke to, I tried to answer their questions the best I could. It took me hours and in some cases days to remember all the things that Miss Reid had said. My mind, I was in a state of shock. But the minute I remembered, she said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. I called Officer Lank.
So this is Jen talking to the defence now around her what she saw observed that morning. It's put to her by Alan Jackson. You didn't say a thing about Miss Reid saying that there had been an argument, did you? And Jen then gets really into the pedantry again. I'm saying I don't remember the specifics. And Jen remembers the specifics when it suits and doesn't when it doesn't suit, I think is what's happening here. I don't remember the specifics of my conversation with Officer Lank. I'm also saying that I was woken up out of a dead sleep. Karen showed up at my house screaming. Now, there is so much in here. Number one, she doesn't answer the question. You didn't say a thing about Miss Reid saying that there had been an argument, did you? It's a yes/no question, and she doesn't say yes or no. She wants to avoid answering that question directly. She does not want to take that question on. So she goes and diverts into, I don't remember the specifics of my conversation with Officer Lank. I'm also saying I was woken up out of a dead sleep. Which is an interesting choice of words, considering that Karen's boyfriend was dead at that point. Jen's best friend, or one of Jen's friends anyway, was dead at that point. She was woken up out of a dead sleep. It's the only time I saw that sort of thing being said, but I do have to flag up, she used the word dead sleep to refer to that period in time. And then she goes to one of her favourite things. Now, this is all extra because this has not been asked for. This is not an answer to the question. She's going extra, so this is stuff that's important for her to get out, important for her to say in her head. Karen showed up at my house screaming. She wants to get across how hysterical Karen was the morning after John O'Keefe died, the morning that John O'Keefe was found dead on the lawn here. She really wants to get that story across about how hysterical, maniac-like, and just erratic, crazy Karen was. We see that in Jen's words all the time. She's not been asked about how Karen was or Karen's demeanour, but she wants to talk about it. You will notice she's moved to past tense to talk about that, unlike the previous part which we saw in the present tense. I'm saying I was woken up. Karen showed up at my house screaming. So this is all in the past tense now, which makes that present tense look interesting. She says, I went out to help her look for John, and we found one of my closest friends on the front lawn, and she was saying crazy things and acting crazy and acting erratic. So really important to Jen to get across Karen's demeanour that morning. Now, why is that? Is it because she wants to pin things on Karen and thinks that by getting across this picture of this madwoman and all her reactions is going to pin things on Karen? Or is it, in Jen's head, one of the strongest thoughts that she has is that Karen's demeanour that day was crazy and erratic and slightly at odds with the story that Karen is now telling about what happened? We'll find out maybe as we go on through what was there. Alan Jackson, Miss McCabe says, that is not my question, and he's told to let her finish. And then Miss McCabe, Jennifer says, every police officer that I spoke to, I tried to answer their questions the best I could. Try, and using the word try suggests failure at times. If someone says they tried to fix their car, they tried to put a new heel on their shoes, you know they didn't do it. You know that it was not successful. And here we have tried to answer their questions, and also the best I could. What's going on there with that phrasing? The best I could. Not I tried to answer. I answered their questions. Why did she not say that? Why did she not say every police officer I spoke to, I answered their questions? It's I tried to answer their questions the best I could. There's some unconfidence there from Jennifer that she has always fully and truthfully answered the questions. That's not to say deliberate deception. It may be just as she wants to explain it. There's a lot going on. There's a lot in her mind, but she's letting out in her language there that she hasn't always given everything, the full answers to the questions. She explains, it took me hours, and in some cases days, to remember all the things that Miss Reid had said. My mind, I was in a state of shock. I've got that shock, startle again coming through. But the minute I remembered, she said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. I called Officer Lang. Now, that's all quite straightforward, although we've got the similar themes. Miss Reid said lots of things, state of shock, but we also have that very straightforward, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. So in that part there, there's lots extra, lots that Jen's brought in that is not asked about in the questions, and it is all about Karen. She really, really wants to get across Karen's demeanour on that morning. Let's hear some more from Jennifer McCabe on the stand.
Take us through walking through the front door. What happens?
So I went in the front door. I opened the door. I walked up the stairs into their hallway, and then I think I knocked on their door.
Bedroom door?
Their bedroom door. And then I opened the door. I went in, and I walked over to the bed, and I was like, Brian, Nicole, because I was in a position where I felt like the world was going on around me, so much was happening, but I also was aware that I was just about to wake up two people that are sound asleep, and they're going to see me standing over their bed and be startled, wondering, what am I doing here?
So what happens?
So it took a minute or two, and then Brian woke up, and he immediately was like startled and was like, Jennifer, what's going on? What are you doing? And then I believe I tried the best I could to say what was going on. I think I said, we found John.
You don't need to describe again, but I want to know their reaction and your interaction with your sister and Brian Albert.
They woke up startled and confused.
Did you have a conversation with them?
Yes.
How long was that conversation?
Brief. They got up, got dressed. I spoke to them.
And where did you go and where did they go?
Then all three of us went down the stairs.
The upstairs to the downstairs?
Upstairs to downstairs, yes.
And upstairs is the second level, is downstairs the first level?
Yes.
As you come down the stairs, can you see the front door?
Yes.
Is there anybody in the house at that point?
I saw Officer Lank.
In the house?
Yes.
Do you know if he had been invited in?
I have no idea.
When you came down the stairs and saw Officer Lank, where was your sister and Brian Albert?
They were walking with me down the stairs.
Did you see whether or not the officer spoke with your sister and your brother?
He did.
I'm sorry.
He did, yes.
Were you there during that conversation?
No.
So this is Jennifer talking about going into the house. John O'Keefe has been found dead on the lawn. She's going into the house of her sister and brother-in-law to tell them what has happened. The prosecutor asks the question, take us through walking through the front door. What happens? And he's asking that question again in the present tense, just like we saw earlier. However, this time, and this is an indication that there was something going on earlier, she answers with past tense, what we would expect. I went in the front door, I opened the door, walked up the stairs into their hallway, all in the past tense. And it will continue, I think, all the way through in the past tense. Obsession with doors. I went in the front door, I opened the door. I kind of knocked on their door. Now, I've got something kind of interesting there is I went in the front door, I opened the door. That's out of time unless there's got one of those double door arrangements where there's like a front door and then another door into the house. I don't know, but it does feel a little bit out of time to me. It would be I opened the door and then went in the front door. That to me would be a proper telling of that. So slightly out of time, that one, I think. I walked up the stairs into their hallway and then I kind of think I knocked on their door. That's very vague. I kind of think I knocked on their door. She's asked bedroom door, and again the obsession with doors continues. Their bedroom door. And then I opened the door. Just kind of opened the door. Okay, I opened the door. I went in and I walked over to the bed and I was like, Brian, Nicole, because I was in a position where I felt like the world was going on around me. So we've got this obsession with doors carrying on. I was in a position where I felt like the world was going on around me. So much was happening, but I also was aware that I was just about to wake up two people that are sound asleep and they're going to see me standing over their bed and be startled, wondering, what am I doing here? Now, this is reassuring to me because truthful people don't mind letting us in on their thought process at the time when they're telling a story. I was thinking this, I was thinking that. And that to me is reassuring. It's also bringing a bit of emotion to the story. We've had a lot of process, almost like stage directions of doors, coming to doors, opening doors, knocking on doors, walking upstairs. It's almost like a script of stage directions. Then she brings a little bit of thought and a little bit of emotion in there as well. You will notice we've got the word startled in there as well. She continues to say, she then asks, so what happens? Present tense question again, but she answers in the past. So I kept. It took a minute or two and then Brian woke up and he immediately was like startled and was like, Jennifer, what's going on? What are you doing? Now, that minute or two, how sound sleepers are these guys? Interesting. In the first trial, Brian Albert said he kept his phone on his bed in case any of his children wanted to call. That's not what a sound sleeper would do, I don't think. But it took a minute or two for them to wake up. Could be, but yeah, interesting. And then again, we have startled there. And then she says, and I believe I tried the best I could to say what was going on. I think I said we found John. Interesting word choices there. We have very much like this. I believe I tried to tell the truth. I believe I tried the best I can to say what was going on. So tried doesn't always say success. And I think I said, we found John. Now, is she just short-circuiting there because the Alberts shouldn't know that John was missing? No, she said, we found John on your front lawn. That would be valid, but, found him. Was he missing? They would be like, what? Were you looking for him? Also severely injured or dead or something like that on your front lawn. She doesn't say any of that, just we found John. That's the word you would give to someone who knew that John was being looked for, rather than someone who has just woken up and knows nothing. You would provide more context there and say a little bit more. She's cut off there. You don't need to describe again, but I want to know their reaction and your interaction with your sister and Brian Albert. She says they woke up startled and confused. Very important for her to get across that they were startled and confused. Why is that? Is it because it's a false impression that she wants to get out there and make sure that we really believe startled and confused, so she's saying it a lot of times? Or is it genuine? Is her biggest thought there that waking up can't be a usual occurrence, waking up your sister and brother-in-law? So maybe that's just what sticks in her mind, how startled and confused. Did you have a conversation with them? Yes. How long was the conversation? She just says brief. She doesn't actually give anything around an amount of time. They got up, got dressed. I spoke to them. Ordering there is interesting. Did they get dressed in front of her? Look, they might have been sleeping in lots of clothes and just put on a little bit more. I don't know. But they got up, got dressed. I spoke to them. Is that how it went down? And where did you go and where did they go? She says, then we all three of us went down the stairs. Now, she's very keen to make sure that it's known that all three of them went down the stairs together. Then we all three of us went down the stairs. Is that just her wanting to be really full in her answers? Or is there something more going on there that she really wants us to believe and know? But she's why she's emphasizing it was all three of them went down the stairs. We've got a strange part to define what upstairs and downstairs is. But, she does look when she's asked. And upstairs is the second level, is downstairs the first level? Yes. One word answer. Obviously the truth. Upstairs is, whatever. You come down the stairs, can you see the front door? Yes. Again, it's a very truthful answer. And she's asked, is there anybody in the house at that point? And she says, I saw Officer Lank. Now, there's a slight mismatch between the question that's asked and the answer that's given. Is there anybody in the house at that point? Now, that's a yes-no question. Should just be a yes, but she wants to kind of race ahead there a little bit and say it was Officer Lank. But the way of doing that is there anybody in the house at that point? Yes, Officer Lank is in the house at that point. Instead, she talks about what she saw, not who was in the house, but what she saw. It's just a very small mismatch there, but she has, instead of saying, yes, Officer Lank was in the house, she wants us to know that she saw Officer Lank in the house. A small mismatch, but it's worth noting as well. In the house? Yes. Do you know if he'd been invited in? And she uses my favourite phrase, I have no idea. Well, she was with the two homeowners, as far as I know, upstairs with them, watching them getting dressed, startling them, confusing them, watching them getting dressed, and speaking to them and letting them know what was going on. Do you know if they had been invited in? I have no idea. Well, you do have an idea because you seem to have been with both the homeowners at the time, and yet you have no idea whether he was invited in or not. Well, you have an idea. He wasn't invited in because the two homeowners have been there. Yeah, did he come in unannounced? I don't know why this would be something that is sensitive, but maybe she just doesn't want to commit to very much. We've seen that in some of the other answers, so it's you have no idea. When you come down the stairs and saw Officer Lank, where was your sister and Brian Albert? They were walking with me down the stairs. And again, she said, did you see whether or not the officer spoke with your sister and your brother? And she says, he did. Again, we've just got this slight mismatch. Did you see whether he spoke with your officer and brother? I saw that, yes, but he did. Very definite, much more pointed than did you see. Then there's an apology for calling him brother and not brother-in-law. Were you there during that conversation? She says no. So that very simple, straightforward answer, no explanation given. Hello, Dr. Wolfe. Nothing at all. It's just a no. So in this part here, it's a very detailed walkthrough to going up to their bedroom, all about doors and process and so on. Very important for Jen to convey confusion and surprise in the house that morning as well, which I think is very interesting given the context of what is going on. Let's hear some more from Jen on the stand.
About every 2.5 minutes or 2.7 minutes, your phone is calling John O'Keefe's phone, correct?
Correct.
You've previously explained what you attribute to those phone calls. Is that right?
Yes.
What's your explanation?
I think I was going back and forth to the door. I was texting him. I think I put my phone in my pocket. I think I inadvertently maybe have called him.
What did you call it at the last hearing?
I believe I called it a butt dial.
And it's not just one butt dial, correct?
There could be multiple, yes.
7 butt dials in the course of 19 minutes, less than 20 minutes, correct?
That evening, I wasn't paying attention to butt dials or calls. I was going back and forth, listening to music, being with family. So if I inadvertently called his phone, I did.
Not inadvertently called him once, 7 times, correct? According to you.
According to the record.
And we only know about these calls because you're looking at an extraction of John O'Keefe's phone, correct?
Correct, but I also turned over my phone, so you could have gotten all of that off of my phone as well.
And you're well aware that an extraction was done on your phone and not one of those butt dials appears on your phone extraction, correct?
Objection.
Are you aware of that?
I am not aware of that.
Lots to dig into here as we talk about the infamous butt dials. When she first testified in the first trial about the butt dials, I found a lot of the language around them deceptive. I really wasn't sure that she was being totally 100% honest about them at the first trial, in my opinion. So how does she do with these butt dials at the second trial? Let's dig into that. The first few questions are answered with her standard way of dealing with the defense when she's been asked questions, which one-word answers, very qualified as well. So your phone is calling John O'Keefe's phone, correct? Correct. You previously explained that you attribute those phone calls. Is that right? Yes. What's your explanation? And she says, I think I was going back and forth to the door. I was texting him. I think I put my phone in my pocket. I think I inadvertently maybe have called him. So much there, so many I thinks, so woolly, so vague. I think I was going back and forth to the door. I was texting him. That's straightforward. I think I put my phone in my pocket. I think I inadvertently maybe have called him. So it's very vague. Look, whatever is going on with her, she does not want to commit to saying I actually did something, bar I was texting him. That's the only thing that she is admitting to very straightly there. She thinks she was going back and forth. She thinks she put her phone in her pocket. She thinks inadvertently maybe have called him. So she doesn't want to commit to anything around these butt dials here at all, but she will say that she was texting him. She's asked, what did you call it at the last hearing? She says, I believe I called it a butt dial. And it's not just one butt dial, correct? And she says there could be multiple. Yes, that was multiple, Jen. You could have just said that. 7 butt dials in the course of 19 minutes, less than 20 minutes, correct? She could just say correct here, but she's a bit rattled now, and when she gets rattled, that's when she goes and gives extra. That's when she goes and gives the words that we can dig into. She says, that evening, I wasn't paying attention to butt dials or calls. I was going back and forth. We have that back and forth phrase again, that she wants to say she was going back and forth. If you watch the full trial, you would have a bit more context to know what she means by that back and forth. However, in this part here, she's just using back and forth. She's not really explaining what back and forth means in the context of these butt dials. In other words, she doesn't join up the thought that she was going back and forth with butt dials, which is interesting that she's not. I was going back and forth, looking at my phone as I was going back and looking at. She doesn't do any of that at all. She just tells us she was going back and forth. Listen to music, being with family. So if I inadvertently called his phone, I did. And she's committing to something there, which is the fact that she might have inadvertently called the phone. Inadvertently, not mistaken or errors or anything like that. But it doesn't answer the question. 7 butt dials in the course of 19 minutes. We are no wiser to the answer of that question from the answer that she gave there. She says, not inadvertently called it. Sorry, she's asked, not inadvertently called him once, 7 times correct, according to you. And Jen then goes into her, I'm committing to nothing at all. I'm going to be very pedantic and say, according to the record, which is her answer. It's then put to her, and we only know about these calls because you're looking at an extraction of John O'Keefe's phone, correct? She says, correct. And she could have left it at that. She could have just said, correct. However, she says, but I also turned over my phone, so you could have gotten all of that off of my phone as well. Now, let's just look at the question and answer here. And we only know about these calls because you're looking at an extraction of John O'Keefe's phone, correct? And she says correct. So she is agreeing that we only know about these calls because we're looking at an extraction of John O'Keefe's phone. So she's agreeing with that we only know about these because of John's phone. Nothing to do with her phone. But then she decides she's going to go extra again. But I also turned over my phone, so you could have gotten all of that off of my phone as well. Well, that means that we only know about these calls would not have been quite correct there. Well, let's put to her, you're well aware that an extraction was done on your phone and not one of those butt dials appears on your phone extraction, correct? So if that is correct, if that point there is correct, then Jen agreeing correct, we only know about these because we looked at John O'Keefe's phone and we wouldn't have got this from your phone, is correct, but she wants to give us the impression that all this stuff is on her phone. But you'll notice that she doesn't lead by saying all this is on my phone. She wants to lead by saying, what a good person I am. I turned over my phone is the first thing that she says. So this is all about the image that, look, this is how helpful I am. I turned over my phone. There's an objection, but the judge says to Jen, are you aware of that? That is, are you aware the extraction was done on your phone and not one of those butt dials appears on your phone extraction? She says, I am not aware of that. I'm not sure this is quite true because it was covered ad nauseum at the first trial that her phone extractions, there were certain calls and so on missing or had been deleted from her call record on her phone. And she says, I am not aware of that. And what makes me think, apart from logic and knowing things, what would make me think that's not right is this non-contraction. She doesn't say, I'm not aware of that. And she's been using contractions very often. We saw, for example, she said, Karen's doing something, not Karen is doing something. She says the very more formal, I am not aware of that. And when someone uses that formal language, it can be an indicator of deception. And they believe that as part of their deception, if they talk formally, that it sounds more forcible, more true if they say it formally and say, I am not aware of that. So she's continuing to talk about the butt dials. It's a really sensitive area for her. As you can see, she feels they need to be defensive at points. They need to be extra at points. She keeps talking about this back and forth, but she's adding no context as how this back and forth contributed to butt dials. And she is aware that those calls were not on her phone. Let's get some more on her talking about these butt dials.
Your phone required some sort of biometric interaction with the phone, otherwise known as Face ID. Or you put in a code, correct?
Yes, or I could have been texting, and then after I texted, the phone was open, and I could have accidentally called John. That happens to me all the time.
It also requires you to open the phone app, correct? For instance, if you're texting, you're in the text app. Is that right?
Actually, I'm not. I'd have to sit and look at it
Well, how often make phone calls, Ms. McCabe?
every day. Every day.
Every day?
Yeah.
Hundreds of times a day, right?
Not hundreds.
Dozens of times a day.
Yeah.
You have to open the phone app to make a phone call. You can't call somebody from the texting app, right? Is that right?
I'm not sure. I don't know what to tell you.
There's a list of apps at the bottom of the phone.
Yes.
Messages. Phone, right? Is that yes?
Yes, and maybe
And
I
that's-
accidentally hit the
So-
last thing, the last call. Like, since I had talked to John.
We have some mechanics of phones going on here, where she is asked, your phone required some sort of biometric interaction with the phone, otherwise known as Face ID, or you put in a code, correct? She says, yes. So there we have an indicator of the truth. And then she goes extra. Or I could have been texting, and then after I texted, the phone was open, and I could have accidentally called John. This happens to me all the time. So she is, once again, it's accidentally called John. So she really wants us to know that these calls calls were not deliberate. They were inadvertent and they were accidental. And she says, this happens to me all the time. That's general. What she's doing here, very much like we saw with Dr. Wolfe earlier, is saying this is normal. This is just normal stuff that happens. Nothing suspicious here. This is all very normal. This happens to me all the time. All the time is an absolute. It's an extreme. It happens what is it happening to you all the time, or does it happen a lot or regularly? This happens to me all the time, but it's general and it's trying to make this sound normal. It also requires you to open the phone app, says Jackson. Correct. For instance, if you're texting, you're in the text app. Is that right? She says, actually, I'm not. I have to sit and look at it. And this, I think, is very much about her not committing to anything that she's not 100% sure of. What I think is going on here, and I did this in real time when the testimony was going on. I was like, is that true? Is that what happens with an iPhone? I wasn't 100% sure. Now, Jen and me, probably the exact same. We're not 100% sure. If we were just talking with our mates about how phones work, it might be, oh yeah, you're in the text app. You have to go and open the phone one to make a phone call. But she's not going to commit to anything she's not 100% sure of in court. I probably would be the same if I felt someone was trying to trip me up like the prosecutor, the defense are here. So she doesn't commits to it. She says, I'm not sure. I'd have to sit and look at it. She's decided if she's not 100% certain about something with this guy, she is not going to go there. So I think this is just strict definitions. Well, how often do you make phone calls, Miss McCabe? Every day, right? Hundreds of times, right? That's quite a stupid thing to say. Not hundreds, dozens of times a day. Yeah. And then Alan Jackson says, you have to open the phone app to make a phone call. You can't call somebody from the texting app, right? Is that right? Alan Jackson, if you are watching, give me a shout because you can make phone calls from the texting app on iPhone. Jen says, I'm not sure. I don't know what to tell you. So we've got an indication here. She says, I'm not sure, which means that there is a possibility in her mind that this is true, which is what's coming from I'm not sure. If you think about how you use I'm not sure, you would suggest that there is a possibility that this is true. Yeah, that sounds right, but I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure. And then she says, I don't know what to tell you. I think this one just really lets us in on her thinking and her strategy for dealing with these questions. I'm not going to say anything I'm not sure of, and I don't know what to tell you is her thinking process coming out. I don't know what to say here. I do not know what is the answer that is going to cause me the least grief here, or get away with anything, or whatever her thought process is. But she's just saying out loud, I don't know what to tell you. There's a lot of apps at the bottom of the phone, says Alan Jackson. Yes, messages on the phone, right? Mm-hmm. Is that a yes? Yes. And I accidentally hit the last call, like since I had talked to John. So we have, once again, just familiar themes. Maybe did this. It was accidentally hit the last call, like since I had talked to John. Again, the fact she was communicating with John earlier is not in doubt. She said she was texting him. She said, I had talked to John. So she's very fine saying that communication has happened. She is not fine about these inadvertent, accidental butt dial calls at all. She's not being helpful here, which I understand to an extent. She doesn't want to say anything that can be jumped on or pounced on or give Alan Jackson anything to work with, so she's locked down and buttoned down. But she's very persuasive that these phone calls were inadvertent and accidental. One more thing from her on these butt dials.
So if you had missed calls, 7 missed calls, that's at least 14 interactions, double it, because you got to make the call, then you got to end the call. 14 interactions with your phone for a single missed call. For 7 missed calls.
It could be, yes.
And your testimony is you don't remember making a single one of those calls to John O'Keefe between 12:29 and 12:50, correct?
I do not remember making those calls, no.
As you sit here, do you deny making those calls between 12:29 and 12:50 to John O'Keefe?
Oh, I'm not denying that, no.
Wow. So, once again, we're in the mechanics of phones. If you had missed calls, 7 missed calls, that's at least 14 interactions. Double it, because you've got to make the call. You've got to end the call. 14 interactions with your phone for a single missed call. She spots the flaw. 1 missed call. I'm sorry for 7 missed calls. She says it could be. Yes. And your testimony is that you don't remember making a single one of those calls to John O'Keefe between 12:29 and 12:50, correct? And she says, I do not remember making those calls. No. Interesting constructions here. We have that formality again. I do not remember making those calls. Not, I don't remember making those calls. That contracted version of do not, which is what we use when we're at ease, when we are just loose and so on. So this suggests a little bit of tension and potentially using that formality to be more persuasive about the point. I do not remember making those calls. No. Interesting. She says no as the answer to the question. Now look at the question and just think about it. Your testimony is you don't remember making a single one of those calls to John O'Keefe. Correct. Yes, my testimony is I do not remember making those calls. Or no, I do remember making those calls would be what is there. But she says, I don't remember making those calls. No, that is not the straight answer to that question. So what is going on there? And then she's asked one tougher than that. As you sit here, do you deny making those calls between 12:29 and 12:50 to John O'Keefe? She says, oh, I'm not denying that. No. Which does answer the question, do you deny? No, I don't deny that. Very unlike the question before. But also, look, what I said, people prefer to tell the truth. And in court, even more so, because if you get caught lying, then that is a potentially very serious thing in court. And so when that big question is put to her, she just says, I'm not denying it. No. So Jen McCabe, butt dials. It's a sensitive subject to her, that is for sure. She does not want to own these butt dials at all. She wants to distance herself from these butt dials, and it's very important for her to get across that they were seen as inadvertent. Let's move on to a different subject now. Let's listen to her testimony.
I know it's an obvious question, but how cold was it?
It was very cold, windy, the snow was blowing. As I stated, I have multiple sclerosis, so when I am out in either extremely hot or cold temperatures, I lose the feeling and sensation in my fingers, which obviously made the Googling very hard for me to do because of my, motor skills.
So when you were outside of the car with the defendant and she had asked you to do a search regarding hypothermia, did you try to do that?
Yes, I did.
Do you know the exact time from your memory? Not from reading or learning, but from your memory. Do you remember the exact time you did that?
No.
Was it after the police came that morning?
Yes.
Had you ever attempted to search about hypothermia any time before that moment, that morning?
No.
Or that day?
No.
That week?
No.
Was this the first time that morning after the defendant asked you to search that you searched that phrase?
Yes, it was.
And did you complete your search and get a result?
So I don't know what came up, because I think as I entered it, I think I misspelled things. And so then I think I tried a second search. And again, I don't think I even paid attention to what came up because we were already on to the next thing. Karen was already moving and screaming about, the next thing to Kerry. Are they working on him? Is he dead?
So we're now on to the Google search that is the subject of a lot of controversy around this trial. The question is put to her by the prosecution, so this is where she feels a little bit safer. I know it's an obvious question, but how cold was it? And her answer is, it was very cold. So that is the answer to the question. How cold was it? It was very cold. And she goes on to answer with a lot more detail about things she wasn't asked about. And this is her in storytelling mode, because once she said it was very cold, she says it was windy, the snow was blowing. Now that could be answering about how cold it was and giving an impression that there was a biting wind and there was snow everywhere, which would make it colder. I might give her that, but everything else is extra. As I stated, I have multiple sclerosis, so when I'm out in either extremely hot or cold temperatures, I lose the feeling and my sensation in my fingers, which obviously made the Googling very hard for me to do because of, my motor skills. All extra, all storytelling, scene setting. So when you were outside of the car with the defendant and she had asked you to do a search regarding hypothermia, did you try and do that? And her reply is, yes, I did. 3-word answer, very, very straightforward. So I'm believing that answer. I cannot pick any holes in that answer. She's asked, do you know the exact time from your memory? Not from reading or learning, but from your memory. Do you remember the exact time you did that? She says, no. I believe that. Again, it's a one-word answer. It's a yes-no question, and she says no. I think there's a theme that goes through her testimony if you watch her on the stand, which is, what do we mean by exact time something happened? We can answer and feel we are being honest and say no if we think that exact time means to the second. What time did you wake up do you know the exact time you woke up this morning? I woke up at 4 a.m. this morning. Don't ask. Long story. But I woke up at 4 a.m. this morning. But that's not the exact time. So was it 4:01 and 25 seconds? And Jen, when she's asked about times, I think she is splitting hairs right down to the seconds so that she doesn't have to commit to anything, so she doesn't have to say anything that gets picked on. So when she's asked the exact time, instead of saying, yeah, it's about 6:20 or 6:23, I know from none of that. She just says no when she's asked for the exact time. Was it after the police came that morning? Yes. I think all these things are true. No, she doesn't know the exact time, and exact time as it is defined in her head. And yes, it was after the police came. Then she says, then she's asked, had you ever attempted to search about hypothermia any time before that moment, that morning? She says, no. Straightforward. Again, believable. Or that day? No. Again, straightforward and believable. That week? No. Again, it's straightforward and believable. Was this the first time that morning after the defendant asked you to search that you searched that phrase? Yes, it was. Again, no extra, no storytelling, nothing at all that ruins the credibility of those answers for me. It's all very straightforward. And did you complete that search and get a result? And then it goes to pot. So I don't know what came up because I think as I entered it, I think I misspelled things. And so then I think I tried a second search. And again, I didn't even think I paid attention to what came up because we were already on to the next thing. And guess what the next thing is? It's about Karen. It's Karen being crazy, erratic, hysterical. And Karen is already moving and screaming about, and the next thing to Kerry, they're working on him. Is he dead? Well, thanks, Jen, for all of that. She doesn't answer the question about did you get a result for the Google search, but she takes the opportunity to move on and once again paint the picture of Karen's demeanour that morning. But here, I think she's straight and believable on have you Googled hypothermia before? When did this all happen? And has she done it before? Was this the first time it happened? Although very crisp, very straightforward, lots of hallmarks of truth-telling there. Until she dodges the search answer and goes on to talk about Karen's demeanour. Let's get some more then on this Google search.
You have nothing in your mind about a Google search at 2:27 a.m. That's what you're testifying to in front of this jury right now.
Are you asking me if I made a Google search at 2:27?
Yes.
I don't know what time I was searching for Hockomock Sports and Ozone. I have no idea what time that was.
You're well aware that your records have been pulled, correct?
Yes, they have.
You've been confronted with those records many times, haven't you?
I've been asked by you, yes.
And by others, right?
Yes.
I mean, the police have asked you about it. You've been interviewed about it.
I've been asked by you.
And Mr. Lally?
Yeah, Mr. Lally asked about it, yes.
And every time you're asked, it's about a Google search at 2:27 a.m. That's all I'm asking.
It is, but it's not one that I remember doing or making or did. It's not one I did. It's just one that is in a record that was misread.
Are you denying that you made a Google search at 2:27 a.m.?
If you could show me this Google search, I'd appreciate it.
Right, this is her now talking to the defence, so not a friendly way of questioning, and her demeanour and her way of being is very different. She's asked, you have nothing in your mind about a Google search at 2:27 a.m, and that's what you're testifying to in front of this jury right now. Now, I have to say, I think Alan Jackson makes himself too obvious. He was laying a trap here, because as it's put to her, as the story is, at 2:27, there were 3 Google searches. There was Hockomock Sports, there was Ozone, and there was How Long to Die in the Cold. But he's narrowed it down to a Google search, not a session on Google or anything like that, but a Google search, i.e. I want to talk about one Google search, and he's made it really obvious that's what he wants to talk about. So I think he made a mistake there. He should have maybe tried to talk in general terms about Google searches and then narrow it down. He may have got further, but I think Jen spotted he only wants to talk about one Google search. I ain't going to go there. So you have nothing in your mind about a Google search at 2:27 a.m. That's what you're testifying to in front of this jury right now. And she replies back with a question, buying her thinking time because she's under pressure about this and she knows it. Are you asking me if I made a Google search at 2:27? I don't know what time I was searching for Hockomock Sports in Ozone. I have no idea what time it was. So we've got a question to a question there. That's buying thinking time for her to construct something or get more comfortable with the words that she's going to use. And we've got our old friend that's come up so many times here. I have no idea what time that was. Well, yeah, I do, because you were asked about it at the last trial. You've been asked about it a lot. So once again, we see the phrase no idea being used to mean a deceptive thing, because you do have an idea. You may have a broad range of idea, about 2:27 before 2:30, but you do have some idea of what it was. That's why I say, if you take anything from this episode, be aware of the phrase no idea. So we have that question to a question. We have that no idea. You are well aware that your records have been pulled, correct? Yes. You have been confronted with those records many times, haven't you? And she says, I've been asked by you. Yes. Changing the sentence, the question again. You've been confronted with those records many times, haven't you? She says, I've been asked by you. So she is taking the sting out of this, not saying I've been confronted. She's changed it to asked. And by others, right? Yeah. I mean, the police have asked about it. You've been interviewed about it. She says, I've been asked by you. So she doesn't take on anything that's sensitive there, that the police have asked her about it, that she's been interviewed about it. Instead, she just goes back again. I've been asked by you, but she doesn't answer the question. She's being very sensitive here about this Google search, with good reason, to be fair. And Mr. Lally, Mr. Lally has asked about it yet. Yes. And every time that you're asked it's about a Google search at 2:27, that's all I'm asking, he says. It's not all you're asking, Alan. It's really not. It is. But it's not one that I remember doing or making or did. It's not one I did. It's just one that is in a record that was misread. Here we go. She's starting to open up. And this is the whole point of questioning her about this and keeping asking her questions to get her rattled, to say something more than just this locked down stuff. And what she says is interesting to me. It's not one I remember doing or making or did. It's not one I did. Now, what's there is straightforward. It's not very persuasive or convincing. She's just straightforward saying it's not one I remember doing or making. Now, that's interesting because you could do the search, you could make the search and not remember it, i.e. it happened, you're just claiming that you don't remember it. And then the last thing she says is, it's not one I did. So, she could have covered this all off in a much more solid way with saying, it's not a search I did. She does say that eventually, it's not one I did, but she could have just said, it's not a search I did. It's one that's in the record that was misread. So the ordering there is quite strange. It's not one I remember doing, I remember making, i.e. it could have happened, but I'm going to say that I don't remember it, or did. But it's all quite straightforward. There's not a lot of extra persuasive, in fact, there's not any extra or persuasive language there to say that I didn't do that. Once again, Jen is being very straightforward in a question and answer session where at times she is being evasive and being very qualified about what she says. There, it's a little bit more open. It's a little bit more straightforward. Alan Jackson says, are you denying you made a Google search at 2:27? Now, the trap is there because she did make Google searches at 2:27. She just wants to say not the one that everyone's interested in. And Alan Jackson should have been a bit smarter with his question in that. And then she says, if you could show me this Google search, I'd appreciate it. Which doesn't answer the question there. So in that section about the Google search, she is evasive around the Google search, but she's very sensitive to it. But I think we could say that she has every right to be sensitive, especially with such an aggressive person or aggressive style of questioning coming her way. Do you want some more on the Google search? Let's do it.
You discussed it in the days following January 29th, correct?
Yes.
You discussed it before her testimony at the grand jury, correct?
We discussed it after. We don't talk about what we're going to say before testifying or anything like that.
So in the 3 months between this incident and the testimony by both you and Ms. Roberts, you two did not discuss this hypothermia issue?
It wasn't an issue. It was just something she said, but we don't discuss it every day. There's no need to.
I didn't ask you to discuss it every day. I asked you if you ever discussed it.
Originally, yes, we did discuss it in the first days following all of
And
this.
that would have been before either one of you testified at the grand jury, correct?
Yes.
And we know that you were with her during her, just before her testimony at the grand jury. Is that right?
Yes.
And you're certainly aware that at the grand jury, that in prior testimony, Carrie Roberts corroborated your statement that Karen Reed demanded to Google hypothermia. Objection.
Ask it differently, Mr. Jackson.
Are you aware that Carrie Roberts, well, let me ask it a different way. Have you and Carrie Roberts ever discussed the fact that she corroborated your statement that Karen Reed demanded that you Google hypothermia?
No.
She never told you that.
No.
Did you ever ask her that?
No.
Did you discuss your statement that Karen Reed was the one that demanded that search?
Karen Reed did ask me to do the search, yes.
Okay, that's not what I asked you. Did you and Carrie Roberts discuss that?
Yes, we've talked about that.
So here we have Jen talking again to the defense, and this is about whether she persuaded Carrie Roberts to back up the thought that this Google search was made on the morning when they found John rather than at 2:27 as the phone records show. She's asked, you discussed it before her testimony at grand jury, correct? So that's Carrie Roberts' testimony at grand jury. So yes, no question, and she doesn't go with yes, no. She says, we discussed it after. We don't talk about what we're going to say before testifying or anything like that. So she's getting ahead of things here and going extra. Not answering the question quite as it was asked, but making sure that she is saying we didn't collude before the grand jury testimony by agreeing what each other would say or backing each other up. Is put to her. So, in the 3 months between this incident and the testimony by both you and Miss Roberts, you two did not discuss the hypothermia issue. And she says it wasn't an issue. Now, that's very straightforward again. It wasn't an issue. But then she does move it on to Karen again. It was just something she said, but we don't discuss it every day. There's no need to. Now, Alan Jackson says, I didn't ask if you discussed it every day. I asked if you'd ever discussed it. And she says, originally, yes, we did discuss it in the first days following all of this. Originally, yes. So she does answer the question and say they discussed it, and they discussed it in the first days following all of this. And that you would have been before, that would have been before either one of you testified at the grand jury, correct? Yes, she says, straightforward, believable. And we know that you were you were with her just before her grand jury, her testimony at the grand jury, is that right? Yes. Have you and Carrie Roberts ever discussed the fact that she corroborated your statement that Karen Reed demanded you Google hypothermia? No. Straightforward and direct again. Has she ever told you that? No. Did you ever ask her that? No. Did you discuss your statement that Karen Reed was the one that demanded the search? And here she does not answer the question. She moves into Karen blaming again. Karen Reed did ask me to do the search. Yes. That's the question I asked you, says Alan Jackson, a man after my own heart. Did you and Carrie Roberts discuss that? Yes, we've talked about that. So here, I found her mostly honest and truthful, saying we have discussed this, but we don't corroborate testimony, and it was quite in general. We didn't corroborate testimony or agree testimony in advance, but we have that move to Karen blaming again, and she always shines a light on Karen's actions, and especially if we just go back and look at what it was. Where she started, just not going to that straightforward yes, no answer thing is, did you discuss your statement that Karen Reed was the one that demanded the search? She says, Karen Reed did ask me to do the search. So while I think there's some straightforwardness in there, is there sensitivity about that question? I think there might be. Okay. We have one last bit of Jen there, and for me, it is the most damning part of the whole testimony from Jen McCabe's side of things. Let's have a listen to this.
Ms. McCabe, the fact is you instructed Carrie Roberts to say that she heard that Google hypothermia statement from my client before she testified at the grand jury, didn't you?
No, absolutely not. I never instructed her to do anything.
You wanted some witness to back up your story about this Google search, correct?
No, absolutely not. I don't
Ms.
need...
McCabe,
It was said. Karen said it. It's that simple.
so you're the only person saying that, though?
Yes, and I stand by that 110%.
And the reason that you wanted another witness to back up that statement is because you knew that that Google search for Hosslong to die in cold points a very uncomfortable finger right toward you, correct?
I never did that search at 227. I never needed to instruct somebody. No, I'm sorry.
There's that apology again. Has someone told you that you need to apologize when there's an uncomfortable question that you don't want to answer?
No,
Have you discussed this with anybody?
no, and that's not an uncomfortable question. I'm fine to answer it.
How many times did you say, I apologize yesterday in cross-examination?
I didn't count.
Probably more than 15, right?
I have no idea. I'm just trying to answer the questions and be truthful as I can.
Right. Didn't like a lot about that. Alan Jackson says, Miss McCabe, the fact is you instructed Kerry Roberts to say that she heard that Google hypothermia statement from my client before she testified at the grand jury, didn't you? Jen says no. So first of all, she does give the no to a yes-no question. And then she uses a lot of deceptive language. Absolutely not. So not just no, it's absolutely not. It's like a super no. She's trying to be persuasive here. Sorry, she is being persuasive here. I never instructed her to do anything. Interesting there. I never instructed her to do anything. Absolutely, using the word absolutely is a flag that deception could be happening. It doesn't prove that someone is lying, but it does suggest deception could be happening. And never is another one of those words. It's quite hard to define never. I never instructed her to do anything. To do anything? I never instructed her to do anything. Not I never instructed her to testify that, or I didn't instruct her to testify that. It's not a massively believable answer. There's lots of indicators of deception there. Then Alan Jackson says, you wanted some witness to back up your story about this Google search, correct? She says, no. Again, straight away, no. And then we have more. Absolutely not. It was said. Karen said it. It's that simple. It's not that simple. What she says there, it was said, Karen said it, it's that simple. That's all believable. It's all very straightforward. There's very few markers of deception in that section. It was said, Karen said it, it's that simple. However, it's not that simple. Did Kerry Roberts hear it or not? You know, Karen may have said it, but did Kerry Roberts hear it? Did you tell Kerry Roberts that's what was said? Did you ask Kerry Roberts to do it at testimony? That's what you're being asked. And instead, you're moving on to something different. Now, the something different is very believable, straightforward. Karen said it. But, so you're the only person saying that, though. It's put to her. She says, yes, I stand by that 110%. Very similar to absolutely. 110%, not just 100%, not just I stand by it, not just yes, I'm the only person saying it. I stand by it 110%. And the reason that you wanted another witness to back up that statement is because you knew that the Google search for Hosslong to die in the cold points a very uncomfortable finger right towards you, correct? And she uses the word never again. I never did that search at 227. I never needed to instruct somebody. It's no, I'm sorry. So we have two nevers there. Bit worried about that. I never needed to instruct somebody. It's not specific. The question is specific about Kerry Roberts, but it's just somebody there. And then we get into, it's one of those great court exchanges. It's no, I'm sorry. He says, there's that apology again. Has someone told you that you need to apologize when there's an uncomfortable answer that you don't want to, an uncomfortable question that you don't want to answer? She says, no. She is asked, have you discussed this with anybody? And she says, no, and that's not an uncomfortable question. I'm fine to answer it. We have, again, some straightforward things here. It's not an uncomfortable question. I'm fine to answer it, suggesting that, again, there's nothing extra. It's very straightforward. She's sure of her ground when she answers these questions. She says, how many times did you say, how many times did you say, I apologize yesterday across the table? She says, I didn't count. Once again, she's just in this mode of, I'm not going to commit to saying any more than I need to answer the question. She says, I didn't count. Probably more than 15, right? And she says, I have no idea. I'm just trying to answer the questions and be as truthful as I can. So what do we have there? Well, look, we have that I have no idea. Now, she was there yesterday. She knows how many times she said sorry, or she's a recollection of how many times she said sorry. But instead, we're going to go to that I have no idea. If you take one thing from this episode, don't trust people when they say they've no idea that they have no idea. They probably have some ideas. Just ask them, if you had an idea, what would it be? And then she gives something extra. She could have just been quiet there. But we get something that we've heard from her before. I'm just, so we've got the word just trying to answer the questions and be as truthful as I can. She's not trying to answer the questions. She's trying to barely answer the questions. I'm just trying to answer the questions. So we'll have the word trying again, like we've seen before, and be as truthful as I can. So what is going on there? Once more, as truthful as I can. Not just trying to be truthful or tell the truth as I know it or as I understand it or anything like that. It's as truthful as I can suggests to me that she cannot be fully truthful. That in her wording there, it seems to me that, she's not being able to be fully truthful, i.e. she is hiding something. So there is a very deep dive into Jen McCabe and her testimony. Look, the big question is Jennifer McCabe at the head of some multi-person conspiracy to protect the serial killer? Well, let's have a look and see what I took there. She was evasive, but much of her evasiveness can be put down to a desire not to have words put in her mouth by the defence. What we need to be aware of is that guilty people or innocent people under stress can exhibit the same signs. So a guilty person is feeling the stress because they think, this is stressful, I could be caught out in a lie. An innocent person who's being looked at potentially as they could be guilty, but they are innocent. They're all going to have stress. They're all going to exhibit very similar signs when they talk. I do sense, when Jem is talking, some construction in her storytelling, and also she has a real desire to highlight what she sees as Karen Reid's bad actions and Karen Reid's character that morning. The Google search. I want to say it wouldn't surprise me either way given the language she used, but she was very straightforward about not making it. I don't believe she made that controversial Google search at 2:27. Butt dials. Now those are different. She offers nothing on them. She offers nothing to persuade them. She does not want to engage in them at all. If you look at how much she engaged in the Google search questions and how straightforward she was on some of them, the butt dials, she wants nothing to do with them. She wants to put them far away over there and create massive difference there. So my opinion is, with Jen, that she believes Karen Reid is guilty and she wants Karen Reid to pay for what she did to John O'Keefe. Now, that desire has not served Jen McCabe well because I think she's exaggerated things at times. She's turned beliefs into certainties and sureties in the past, but now that she is under scrutiny for some of the things that she said, she has to be very careful about what she says, and that's coming through. Conspiracy? Is Jen McCabe part of a conspiracy? Look, I don't think she's part of a conspiracy to frame Karen Reid at the expense of the real guilty party, but I think very possible some collusion has happened between Jen and others to ensure that Karen Reid paid for the crime. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments here if you can, or you can find me on social media. All the links are at neveratruerword.com. You'll also find there loads more videos, including a playlist on Karen Reid's trial, so you can find what I think about some of the things that have happened there. You'll find a whole load of podcasts there as well. You can sign up for the newsletter, and if you want to discuss the words that people use as well, you could join the Never a Truer Word Facebook group. You can find all the details for all of those things at neveratruerword.com, and we'll see you soon for something new from Never a Truer Word.